My name is Dean Lucas. I'm a carpenter. I own a business, Suburban Remodeling. The way I got involved with this epidemic, the opioid epidemic, is losing a son. My son was 27 years old, and we found him the day before Christmas Eve on 2016 on the floor. He had a needle in his arm. He had Narcan actually on his bedside table, and he had tooth fairy money for his daughter, but he was on the floor, dead. About my son, Lee Lucas, he was a good boy. He didn't really ever follow the rules the way you want your kid to, but he followed the rules. He was always a pusher, and like I remember his mother and I talked about, even when he was 2 years old, if you told him, don't touch that, he would probably touch that, and that's who he was. I believe we didn't know this back in the day, that he had this addictive personality, and he did. As he got older, he was probably 15 years old when his mom and I split, and I think that caused a little bit of a rift. He started smoking marijuana when he was about 15, and his worst time in his pre-adult, he was on to DXM, which is robo-tripping, that kind of thing. And I remember several times like having to grab him, take him to Strong, and have him process that kind of thing. But then it kicked that completely. When he became an adult, he actually was more focused on his daughter and his living, where he wanted to go. He wanted to take over my business, which he could have if it wasn't for his his dip into opioids. And that would have, unfortunately, that took over his life. But he was never a bad kid. He didn't break the law. He wasn't that kind of a kid. He was actually an upright guy. And then he hurt his back and was given an opioid pain med, and that's what turned his tables. He was on heavy. He was taking pain meds, and he did get off of it. But then he somehow dipped into heroin once, and apparently from his manual, he knew that was like something that he wanted to have again. And so he was picked up and went to jail for buying, and he actually served time in jail. When he came out, he was clean, and he was remaining clean. But on the job, we were doing a heavy bathroom tear-out. He hurt his back again, and he was actually prescribed another opioid, and he said he held the pill in his hand, and he knew what he should do, but he knew, and this is out of a manual, out of one of his ledgers, when he was in, I think that's when he was in Van Dyke, this manual that I'm talking about. But he said he knew what he should do, but he knew what he was going to do, and he chewed it instead of took it like prescribed. And he said from that point on is when he was hooked. He struggled for 2 years getting off of heroin, and he would go in and he would come out clean, but within a week, sometimes a little longer, he would become dirty again. In 2016 in September, I was in Italy. I turned 50, so I threw myself a party and went to Italy, and got a call from his mom that he didn't obey the rules for the drug court, so he actually went in. He was in from September, I believe it was the 15th or the 16th. He was in jail, so he was clean until he got out in December, the 2nd of December. And so he was clean that whole time. And he stayed clean, and he stayed focused. Him and I had long conversations of what tomorrow was going to be and where we were going, what we were going to do. The 22nd, I was having a beer with my other boy, Michael, in Fairport, and I got a text from my granddaughter's mother saying, "What time did you let Lee out?" And I said, "I believe he left around 4:30, and she said, "I've got a bad feeling. He didn't get here till 6:30. I didn't like the sound in his voice," that kind of thing. The plan was going to be, for the 23rd, the plan was going to be I was going to pick him up like I usually did, have him P-test for me right at his mom's place, and then go to work. he was going to take my truck to a doctor appointment. We had helped him set up an appointment with a doctor that could prescribe Suboxone if felt needed, which was difficult back in 2016. It was difficult to find like just a regular physical medical doctor, like a general, that could prescribe. It's different now. But at any rate, I didn't go. I talked to my younger boy and said, should I leave? Should I go? And my son's response, which was accurate, and I probably would have said it myself back then, was, he's just going to lie to you anyways. If he's got something, he's not going to tell you anyways. So I didn't leave, and I left the bar. One drink later, came home, laid down and struggled with sleep like I did back then, wondering, and got up. I get up early, but anyways, I'm in the office around 7:15, and it's his daughter, Kylie, and she said, there's something wrong with Daddy, Papa, you got to come now. And so that was the 23rd, and he was gone. So we figured that the medical examiner and the doctors feel that he was probably about 4 hours. He had passed about 4 hours before. The date he passed was December 23rd, and that was 2016. This was 2016, September is when he was going to, it wasn't truly drug court, but it was very similar to drug court. He had to go weekly, sometimes twice a week, to Delphi. He had to check in there, everything. He had his pee checked always, every week there. And then once a month he would have to go to, I would take him down basically across from the town hall, Rochester City Hall. And basically he would have to go in front of a judge, and the judge would question him, and if everything didn't line up what he was supposed to do, he would end up going in, which is very similar to drug court. Well, he didn't obey as should. When he was in Delphi, I would take him and drop him off, and he would walk in, and so I would leave and tell him I'd be back in 2 hours. Well, he would basically, as soon as I left the parking lot, he would walk outside and go find somewhere to buy. And then that was his thing. And I would get him up into Irondequoit, where apparently he had people he could buy from. And so he was caught on that, because Delphi finally said enough was enough. He was missing enough that they actually booted him from Delphi. So once he was kicked out of Delphi, you're not following the rules. You're supposed to be doing, the outpatient, and you're not doing the outpatient. So none of us knew it until, like I say, I was out of the country when we found out, but he was in. He had taken my truck, one of my vehicles, my work truck, and actually went to, he was parking in the city municipal parking garage. And my truck, which was, the back was unlocked, I had several, thousands of dollars in the back of the truck, and I'm in Italy, so I can't go and get my truck. So I basically called my younger boy, and he went down and got the stuff out of the truck. When I got back from Italy, I went and picked up the truck, and in the garage, where he was going to court for heroin use, was 3 bags of heroin in my console. So it's just, and I want to clarify what a good, upstanding man he was. You would never have looked at him to think like, oh, that's a junkie. He's definitely a junkie. He wasn't a pretty boy, but he was a model. He actually, literally, you looked at him, he made you smile. He was that kind of boy. It's the heroin doesn't care who you are, or what you are. The heroin will take you and will beat you. When my son was trying so hard the last 2 years of his life, and this really goes to about a year before he passed, that's where this paper came from, but this paper represents all of the places that he called to try to get to inpatient. He needed a bed, and he knew he needed a bed. For an addict, unfortunately now I'm more familiar. I've been pushed into this pool, but if an addict is looking for a bed, you need to get him a bed, because literally when you miss that window, which is a very small, narrow window, if you miss that window, they're right back to using, and that will take over. There's a small time where you can win it, You need to win it. But this paper represents like all the places that he called and what he was told. And there's basically no Suboxone. You can see that it says no Suboxone. Basically, you could be, if you can't come here because you're on Suboxone. Or the next one was, oh, you're on Suboxone? No, you can't come here. We don't take it if you're on Suboxone. And basically, you have health insurance that will cover it, or you're on Medicare. Then no, sorry, you can't come here. You can't have insurance, or you can't be on Medicare. And it would be like it was a two-sided paper. No matter what you did and how you tried to jump through the hoops, it was very, very difficult. And there's some of them that basically he uses swear words that who we talk to. Like basically, she's just a B word, and like basically. And some of them he liked. She was a nice girl, or this man was a nice guy, but I can't go because of this. And he would get in, and like I say, Van Dyke I think was his favorite one out of all of them that he was in. Van Dyke was actually very successful, and that when he got out, he was going to make it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be there. And the big thing for my son was to be completely abstain from everything, whether that was smoking a cigarette or having a beer with his dad, or packing a bowl on Friday. He didn't want to be completely abstaining from every single thing. He wanted to be like a normal boy, like his best friend, or like your friends. You really, we go through life and we're sort of feel like we have these rights, or these we have license to be free. But when you're an addict, a true addict, you need to abstain. I think that we all need some sort of release. To sit and have beer with my boy or with a friend of mine, it lets me relax, it lets me release. But when you are a true addict, you can't have that. I think that the big thing that recovery has found as the one thing that you can release with is exercise, with physical exercise, and that is proven to be like amazing for everybody. In fact, my son, he came back from one of his inpatients and said, "Dad, we got to start working out together," or whatever. And I'm like, "Yeah, definitely." But I work out early morning, and he didn't care to get up early in the morning. But I told him, you give me a time, we'll do that. And recovery was just in their beginning stages, but he talked about it. Like recovery has got a gym, whatever. I'm like, I'm in, we can do it. But he never really pulled that trigger. But I think that helps. And Yana, one of the founding members of recovery, she'll tell you the same thing. She has definitely made great success. But again, with this physical activity, the exercise actually releasing the endorphins and actually doing all that, they have found great success. The founding members have done great. People are clean and they're staying clean. John is a great man and has done great work. So the impact that this has had on me, it was brutal. From 2015 up to his passing, both when he was using and when he was clean and we expected him to go back to using. My phone was on like high always. It was never left my side, whether I was sleeping or I wasn't. And his mother will tell you the same thing. Like we slept poorly. We would sleep an hour and then we would wake up and look at our phone. And basically that impact was what we thought was the worst. We'll never have this kind of pain again. We were wrong. From December 23rd, 2016, I can speak for myself, not for my ex-wife, but my life has completely changed. The person that's sitting here talking to you now is not Dean Lucas. I had fun. I was the life of the party. People wanted to be around me because I would make you laugh, and I did good just to do good. And now my I just talked to my younger boy yesterday that my focus is on killing this epidemic, like somehow winning this war. My business is still very successful, so I do have work time, but even when I'm at work, if I get a text about something, somebody needs something, or what do you think about doing this to raise, funds for Gates to Recovery, I'm on it. I will take a break off of doing what I'm doing physically at work just to do that. Like it took my son. I don't want it to take, your son or my neighbor or these people I don't know. I don't want them to lose and be in the pain that I'm in. It hasn't taken away the love I have for my second son. It hasn't taken away, my drive to take on, my business, which I took over from my father. It hasn't taken that away, but it's put that on the back burner. Everything is put on the back burner when I think that inside me somewhere I feel like I can bring my son back. And I'm not stupid. I know that I can't bring my son back, but I feel like me pushing and striving so bad that I will make him proud of his father somehow if I can, help beat this epidemic, which isn't just taking, Rochester area. It's taking all over. It's taking over. But we can win, but we have to fight. We can't just sit. I would say that it has brought on a new purpose. It's basically given me. I tried to help my son when he was trying to get off, to be clean from heroin. I tried to help him, but I tried in a way that I knew. And I've been through, 52 years in this world, and so I've seen things go and things struggles and things that you can beat, and you can try to fight the battle in a different way or the same way. I think that I was still trying to fight in a way that I knew or I grew up with, and that wouldn't work with this. I had never fought anything like a heroin addiction. I had never seen anything like a heroin addiction. I remember the day that my son told me that he was using, and it was heroin. I was like totally, like, how can it possibly be that my boy, I'm not a rich man, but I'm not some, living under a box kind of family man either. So how is it that with what you've done in your life, you go to heroin? If, to me, a junkie was a junkie. I learned the hard way that's not somebody who uses heroin. I think the word junkie should be like just totally taken out of our language. The effects that it's had on his family, as far as his younger brother, it totally changed his life and his viewpoint. We spoke earlier about the day, the day before he passed away, how my son said, "Dad, he's just going to lie." He thought he understood. And now the loss of his older brother has brought him to a different viewpoint. When he hears people, or on social media, he hears people comment about heroin users or users like that, he steps up and he tells them, you're wrong. You think you're right, just like I did, but I know firsthand. So he's actually become more educated in that way, and he's fighting that battle, but it's also taken away his older brother. He doesn't get to laugh or see, the reaction about what mom said or dad said. And we actually spoke of that yesterday, how, he laughed about things that I do. I'm like a taskmaster. Like I own a business, so if I need you to do something, you do it. The way I approach it is very brash. And he was laughing with his mom, and he said Lee would have loved it, because Lee worked for me. He worked with me, and so he said that they would make fun of me all the time. You take away something like that in your life, something that you grew up with. He always had his brother. His brother was there, 3 years before him, so now he doesn't. Now he is the oldest. He's sort of an only child now. He can only show his daughter pictures of her uncle. It definitely changed his life completely. Lee was going to be his best man in his wedding, and he had no best man because he didn't want to give that spot away. As far as Lee's daughter, Kylie, she has gone through serious struggles, depression and anxiety. She was with me and my ex, her grandma, all the time. Her mother is like a sole parent now to 2 children. She has two little girls that the one is still alive. He's a recovering addict, but he's alive, so he's not in her life much. As far as Kylie, she is a sole parent now with my granddaughter Kylie, because her dad, my son, is gone. Kylie has, she tried to run away twice. Once she was successful. She got all the way from Webster to the St. Paul transfer on the bus, and she actually walked to Highland Hospital on her own at 6:20 in the morning is when she got off the bus. And we found her with the city cameras, but she actually literally, she wanted to check herself into Highland because she said she didn't feel safe with herself. She stayed in, they transferred to Strong, and she was in Strong for 2 months probably. She got out, and she was on antidepressant medicine, and she took and she held on to them. She kept holding the medicine that she was given to her mom from her mom, kept holding them, and then I guess it's been probably 2 months ago, she tried to, kill herself. Basically, she took those pills thinking that it would do it. It wouldn't. But she was sick, and she basically went back to Strong. Now they have transferred her. She's in Buffalo now, in a pediatric psych ward, trying to fix my granddaughter. But when you were 10 years old, had you walked in to find your father with a needle in his arm, not sure what it would do to you or to me. She's had a hard life. Her parents had never really been together, and when they were, it was for a short time, and then they would split again. My son got Kylie's mom pregnant early on, still in high school, and so if you look into it, it generally happens that your maturing stops. And so Lee matured in different areas, but Kylie's mom, she struggled in certain areas. So they both struggled in certain areas for the maturing, and I think that that's what Kylie has been given, the plate that she's given. And I think when seeing her father, I think she feels like enough is enough. And it's not. She has loving family around her. Her mother loves her as much as your mom loves you. And her grandparents are, all of us, on both sides are there to support Kylie, but she doesn't see it as now 12 years old. She don't see it that way. So she will actually be 13 in a few weeks. She'll be 13 years old, and so even as a boy going through those years is difficult, but for a girl even more, the hormones and everything changes.